Hello, everybody, and welcome to our July live event. My name is Dave Solberg, the managing editor of the RV Repair Club. And it's been a pretty busy summer. We have the renovation of our little travel trailer that George has been working on. It's almost done, I believe. So look for those videos to be coming along pretty soon. He had quite an adventure with that. We had quite a leak, and the floor was ruined on it, so he had to replace the floor. So there's some really good renovation videos coming from George. Hello, everybody, and welcome to our July. And that's what event. I can. Dave Solberg, managing editor of the RV. So I got to turn my thing down here so I can actually. Oh, okay. How do I do that? So we're going to swipe this, and we're going to try to get to. No, we're not going to power off. Sorry, everybody. Hang with me here. My granddaughter's not here, so she can't tell me how to do this. Angie can help me. How do I turn my phone down, the volume off my phone? Angie's going to be on live here for just a second. But I do know the first question that came in was from George, and George wants to put a Puma Mimo, I guess it is, antenna on the roof of his RV. And I am not familiar with that brand of antenna. I've got the Winegard, the Kings that we've used for many years. But he wants to know if he should put it on a pole on the back and drill a hole through the back side of it. And, I would say to begin with, before you might want to play a little bit with the location of the antenna. I know a lot of them have specifics that you need to be a certain distance away from obstructions, air conditioners, and stuff like that. I do know that at times we have put some antennas up on a roof area close to an air conditioner, and we got some static out of it because of the air conditioner and the leaky voltage, I guess it was. And so you got just a little bit of a kind of a white hum, we would call it. So I would first mount it to a pole and maybe try to bring the coax in through a window or something before you start drilling holes. Once you do drill holes, well, make sure you understand where your 120 volt electrical lines are running, because you will have some that are in the roof of your unit that are going to go to that air conditioner. Some of them pre-plumb to power vents as well. And so make sure you understand where those things are at. Typically, you can find those just by plugging in and then running a non-contact voltage tester over parts of your roof and be able to identify. The other thing is you got 12 volt lines running through those as well. So you want to make sure that you take a look and find out before you start drilling holes. So how are we doing, Angie?
Yeah, I got that down. You're going to bring the questions back up though.
Okay.
That's in YouTube.
Okay, so we are going to go back to the RV Repair Club. Do you have the questions there? Can you look at them real quick? Or
Gary asks, good afternoon. I have a slide that won't retract. All batteries are new. The slide will travel about 8 inches either way and then stops.
Okay.
He says he has a 2015 Fleetwood Southwind 34A.
Okay, so and what was his name? Gary? Gary has a 2015 Fleetwood Southwind A, and he's having trouble with his slides. And he says the batteries are good. The slide will go in about 8 inches and then stop on him. And the first thing I would do is that slide is probably a Power Gear slide. And Lippert owns Power Gear now. They bought them out a few years ago, maybe somewhere close to the time your unit was built, maybe just a little after that. But that runs on the house batteries. And the gremlin that you find in the slide rooms and the batteries is if your batteries are lead acid batteries and they're sulfated, they're going to look like they're fully charged. You're going to think they're in good condition. But the minute you put a load on those things, they drop and they just don't have enough oomph to move that unit. So two things I would do. Number one is I would make sure that all my jacks are down, that the unit is level. Because if you have an unlevel unit or it's moving when your slide room starts to go and the weight of it goes out, that chassis is going to twist, that floor is going to twist, and your sidewall will twist as well. So then you've got a box trying to go out with a lot of friction on that thing, and then you're adding to the amp draw of that motor pulling off of the batteries. The second thing I would do is when you do this, go out and get a battery charger. You know, the challenge that you have with batteries is that if you're on a 30 amp circuit and you're running your air conditioner and other stuff inside your RV, you only have so many amps to run all this stuff inside. So with your converter in there that's going to charge your batteries, I've seen times where we've had units that were plugged in, the batteries drained completely dead while the unit was plugged into 30 amp because there just wasn't enough amps to charge that batteries at 6-7 amp charge. So take a battery charger and put it on your batteries and directly plug it in to campground sources somewhere and see if that makes a difference, because I would venture to say that you're just putting too much amp draw on that battery, that it can't withstand that initial oomph trying to do it, and then it's just going to shut down. After that, then you have to start looking at alignment of your rack and pinion system that the Power Gear has, and if there's any kind of resistance to it, because that motor has kind of an override feature. It gets up to a certain amp and it'll stop working. So try those things. Okay.
Larry asks, 2005 Fleetwood Pace Arrow. My awning was working fine until just now. I tried extract it and it only goes about 6 inches. Then I can get it back in. Worked great yesterday. It's automatic, obviously.
Okay. So she has a Fleetwood. So it's Fleetwood Day today, and she's got an awning on it, and it's probably there's several different awning manufacturers out in the market. The A&E was probably predominant for a long time. Carefree of Colorado, Lippert has taken over a lot of the less expensive market. So I'm not sure exactly what style. What year did she say it was?
2005.
2005. So you probably got an A&E, Weather Pro or something like that. And since it's automatic, the first thing I would check is the sensor, and I believe it's out towards the end of that sensor of the roll that it comes out into, and it should have a battery in there. It could be just as simple as a AA battery is dead. I've had a couple units like that. Normally what happens with those is that it's the automatic retract that it comes in, but I would check that first. The next thing is do the same thing I mentioned about the leveling jacks, is to put a battery charger on your battery and just see if that makes a difference. Just getting that extra oomph in something that, if they're sulfated, and a 2005 probably has lead acid batteries, I would imagine. With the Fleetwood, you're looking at either 2 or 4 6-volt batteries in those, and you're probably to the point where they're getting pretty weak. So I would put a battery charger on it. After that, then you're looking at more of the module, and yours is probably mounted inside in the overhead as the entrance door. There's usually a compartment either right above or right to the right side of it that your module is in, and sometimes it'll give you an error code even, that if it's binding up, so if it was working fine, did it get twisted a little bit? I doubt it. I would just say probably it's more of a power issue, that you're just not getting enough 12 volt, because that also runs off the house battery, right?
Ronald asks, my shower water goes into my black tank. Is this normal or a manufacturer defect?
The question is, his shower water goes into the black water tank, and is that normal or a manufacturer's defect? And I don't think it's a defect. It's not normal, because your shower water is supposed to go into your gray water tank, and that is a cleaner water. It helps to clean out the hose, but every manufacturer does stuff different. I've found never say never in the RV world, and a lot of times you got to remember that the people making these, designing these, don't use them, and they think that something is a great idea. And probably what happened in this instance is the floor plan design that you have, and their chassis foundation that they have, made it probably a challenge or almost impossible to get the shower to where the gray water could be. The black water has to have the toilet going down there. That's your toilet water and sewage going into it. And gray water can be several sinks or so forth, and that usually isn't the case. But what was the brand?
It doesn't. It didn't say
Okay, it
that.
didn't say the brand, so I don't know if it's a travel trailer or a motorhome, but I would check with your manufacturer first of all. Every manufacturer has an owner relations department. You know, if it's Keystone, they have individual departments for their Montana division and Raptor and so forth. You know, Winnebago has their own. So, and I would doubt it was a Winnebago, because when they manufacture their own chassis, their own tanks that can fit in the spots that they need them. So, you know, it could be just the logistics of that. That's something that, you know, probably when I do the owners or buyer seminar, one of the things I tell people, you know, make sure you look at tank capacities. And, you know, if you have a gray water tank that is very small, which in your case I would bet it is, if the shower goes into the black water tank with the toilet, there's only a couple sinks left. So they might have had a small area for the gray water. And I'd look at it and say, I can't camp very long if that's the case. So I would check with your manufacturer.
Michael asks, I have a 30-foot Gulfstream BT Cruiser which uses 30 amp hookup, one AC roof unit. If I installed an AC soft start on the AC, would I be able to use a 15 or 20 amp household circuit to run just the AC?
Okay, so he's got a BT Cruiser, which is it's a Class B, I think. Could be a Class C. It's right kind of in that. They had a couple different models on it, but it's a smaller unit. It's 30 foot, so I would say it's probably a Class C. You know, with the van style front and a little bit bigger back end, but not as big as a large Class C. And he's got one roof air conditioner, and if he wants to know if he can run it off a 15 or 20 amp household circuit, if he uses the soft start. And you can, the thing you have to keep in mind is you have to understand your amp draw. You have to understand it. So what all the soft start does is it helps do a nice, soft, progressive startup of your roof air conditioner. Because normally what happens when that roof air conditioner kicks in, it just, and it does a spike in there. So if you've got other stuff on inside your RV, you'll trip your 30 amp breaker. So it does a nice gradual ramp up, and it doesn't hurt the air conditioner. And it's a nice product to have, because when that cycles on and off during the day in really hot days, you don't want that spike when you're already, you know, up into say 20 amps drawing on your normal system. When that thing kicks in, it can kick in 14 amps, you know, at the very beginning, sometimes even a little more than that. So that is only for startup. The thing that you have to realize, or not realize, but manage, is what else inside the coach is going to be running when you're plugged in. So you've got, if you run the refrigerator, that could take 6 to 8 amps, depending on the size of the refrigerator. Your air conditioner on the hot days is going to run 14 amps. So right there, you're already over 15. So I would say definitely not on a 15 amp service. I tell people, you know, if you're going to plug into your house, number one, you need a dedicated service, because that normal plug-in in your garage is ganged to other plugs in your garage almost always. So if you have a freezer or an air compressor or a refrigerator or something else hooked to that circuit, then that's going to overload that circuit. If you're at 20 amps, and one of the things that's going to happen is your batteries are going to drain down. Even though you're plugged into 110, you're, you know, with a 20 amp circuit, your batteries are going to power the eyebrow board of that air conditioner and of your refrigerator, and they're going to draw the batteries down. And then at some point, those batteries, when they hit 50% draw off it, that converter is going to kick in and charge the batteries, and that could be 9 amps. So now you got 14 amps running, you know, at full blast, and 9 amps, you're at 23. So you could trip that circuit. So the thing that you got to be careful about is, and that air conditioner isn't always going to run at 14 amps, but you don't know that. You know, you don't know when it's going to do it. So the best thing I can say is, if you're going to plug your unit in and you want to run the air conditioner inside of it, put a 30 amp circuit, dedicated circuit, in there by a qualified electrician, and make sure that they know that 30 amp circuit is 120. 110 or 120. We see sometimes where an electrician will come in and they'll put a 30 amp dryer cord type thing. Well, that's 220. You got two hot legs, and you don't want that in your 30 amp 4-year RV. You've got one hot, one neutral, and one ground in that, and make sure they understand that. So I would not chance the 20 amp just because I can't manage it. You know, I can't make sure that nothing is going to go above that. And I'm sure that if you're going to park it at your driveway and plug it in, you're probably going to want to cool the refrigerator down. So now all of a sudden you're adding more and more stuff to it that you just can't manage.
Bob asks, the door piston on my Georgetown 330 TS is a JP Products GS NZ G200-20. I found a possible replacement from Kamagoo labeled 20-inch, 200 pounds. Does this sound like a safe substitute?
Okay, so he's got a gas door shock that we have a picture of here. I don't know if you can see that, and you can zoom in a little bit. Okay, and what that does is it's just going to hold the compartment door up, and he wants to know it's a 20-inch gas spring strut. So the thing that you have to look at with struts is, in that case, I'm not sure if you got one or two. Does it say what is there one or two struts on the door? Usually there's just one. You know, you could get by with that. You just got to make sure that it has the same opening. I can't remember what they call it, not the clearance, but the travel of that shock. So you can replace it with other stuff. And if the mounting pegs are all right, I'm not familiar with the one you had in it, but I would say if it has the same travel length, it's not going to push the door too far up. You know, and it has a slight stop. 200-pound is very heavy enough to hold that door up. So you shouldn't have a problem with it. I would say you're okay to do it. Go ahead.
Richard asks,
RV Repair Club.
Have a leak in our stove. Can I isolate the cooktop from the rest of the LP lines so we can still use the fridge and the water heater?
Okay, so he has, repeat that first part, the stove has a leak or?
Have a leak in our stove. Can I isolate the cooktop from the rest of the LP lines?
Yeah, okay, so he's got an LP leak in his stove, and he wants to know if he can isolate that and still use the other stuff in there. And you can. I'm not sure where the leak's at. That would be the concern to me. I think what I would recommend is to follow where that gas line, you'll have a copper gas line that will come up to that stove, and you want to make sure you cap that with a professional plug. And I would highly recommend to take it into a technician, just because when you start looking at gas leaks and you've got a leak somewhere in that stove itself, you know, what is the condition of that line going to it? You probably want to get down to wherever that line supplies at and cap that with a compression fitting cap. And even before all that, make sure the gas is completely turned off. I would say shut it off at the tank itself. And you know, not knowing your level of confidence in it or in you know, expertise in doing that, I would say that you really need to make sure that you get that thing capped professionally and leak test it. You know, they make a solution that you can leak test with, but they also have, this is a product that I bought. It's just called Home Flex, and all it is you take the cap off this thing, hit that, and it just does a series of sniffing, and you can have it, you know, around your appliances and everything, and just find out after a little bit of time here, it'll go through its cycle, and it will tell you that it is either good or it's bad. And should be real quick here. Chirp, chirp, chirp. So no leak here. And, you know, I would get one of these, or at least get the leak tester solution. And you can get that at Ace Hardware. You can get it at just about any home improvement center. And you want to get the solution. You don't want to use soapy water, because the soapy water can deteriorate the seals and some of the fittings in there. So they don't recommend using that stuff anymore. So I would definitely make sure you get it capped off. But you can separate that and isolate the stove. And keep in mind, sometimes it's stove and oven. So you need to verify where that line goes in if it goes down to the oven. Yes, okay, let's see if I can get to videos. There we go. I think I got it. Live events.
We're at Susan.
We're at Susan. All right. I am, oops, watch now. Somebody posted a question. Dave, how does your phone work? No, that's not right. Okay, back to the garage. Picture is correct. Okay, we are there. And Brad, Richard, it's really not Susan. Not Richard. It's really Susan, not Richard. Okay, I think I'm close. Door piston. Richard Lundquist, have a leak in the stove. Okay, and this is Susan, though, because she says, P.S., it's really Susan, not Richard. Thank you, Susan. Door latch on my 2000 Harney Renegade is getting harder and harder to open. Takes a really firm pull to get it to release and open the door. Also, the outside latch on the door will not always release the auto latch feature, so I can close the door. The door latch on a Renegade, and I guess I'm not familiar with the door latch. So are we looking, and Susan, if you could repost another little more information on it. So the door latch, are you talking about an entry door or are you talking about a compartment door? And it's getting harder and harder to open. It takes a really firm pull. So I'm kind of assuming outdoor latch on the door will not release the auto latch feature, so I can close the door. Okay. So, I guess one of the things, I think it's the entry door in it. And so you've got an auto latch that you open the door and it locks, and then you can pull the latch and it'll unlock it so you can close the door, and that's not working. So I would say probably the thing you're going to need to do with this is take the latch apart and, just make sure you lubricate, clean everything. A lot of times what happens is that you go down the road and you get all this dirt and this grime and stuff that's flying around there. And especially if you're on the east or the west coast, you can get that salt in the air that just really corrodes those locks and latches. And we see it on compartment doors a lot. So I would say take and clean that out really good. Maybe before you try that, you could get in there and take a good silicone lubricant. You don't want to use WD-40 because that's going to add more grit to it, but get in there and spray, if you can, right through the latch itself, where the striker pin is, and get in there and see if you can clean some of that gunk out of there, and see if that helps a little bit. Otherwise, you're pretty much going to have to take it apart and clean everything out, and make sure nothing's broken, because the harder it gets, sometimes that stuff starts to bend, and then you get into trouble with it. All right. P.S. It's really Susan, not Richard. And walk over now live. Send. Okay. My heater, Salister says, my heater often does not fire up. After blowing cold air, it shuts down. If I go outside, pull off the cover and vacuum, it will start up. Any solutions? Couple things can cause this, and we've had a lot of furnace questions come up over the course of time here, and I'm going to pull up a furnace here. Just to show what happens in this. So when you set your thermostat, let's put that inside. When you set your thermostat to the temperature you want and it calls for heat, the first thing that happens is the blower motor kicks on, this one right here. And what it's doing is it's purging this chamber, making sure there's no exhaust in the chamber that is supposed to go out to the outside. And while it's doing this, you have to have enough air pressure to push up this sail switch, it's called. And can you see that in the, okay, this is a sail switch. And what it's doing is this is pushing air, and this is going to be covering this back on here like this, it takes a little bit of wrangling to get it back on there, but that's covering this here. And so that is supposed to push that sail switch, which now closes this and sends to your module board and says, yes, we have enough airflow. Go ahead, open the gas valve, click, start, light, and we're good to go. So if this doesn't have enough power to pull this up, it's going to blow cold air for a while, and it's going to go, nope, we don't have enough power. We're going to get some exhaust fumes in here. We're not going to have it's not working efficiently. Shut it down. And it'll try it a couple times, I think, in most models. But if you got cold air blowing, that's pretty much what's happening. So there's a couple things that can make that happen. First of all is we go back to the batteries. Again, the battery is what powers this thing and what makes it go. So if you have, your batteries, this thing will start up and spin with batteries clear down to 50% drainage, which is zero in usage, but it won't light. So it's a little deceiving. You think, well, it's starting up, I'm getting cold air and it's blowing. It's not getting the sail switch up high enough for it to go. So the first thing I would do is I would put a battery charger on those batteries. I keep going back to this battery issue, but you have sulfated batteries, and it's one of the biggest problems in the RV industry that people don't understand. And take it into a dealership, and you may have charged them up for a while, and then it works fine. Well, the batteries are charged up to a certain point, and there's this little gray area. So your batteries drain down to a certain point, and your converter still hasn't recognized that they need to be charged yet. So you got this little area here where the battery is now down below a point where it can't run the refrigerator, it can't run the eyebrow board of the air conditioner, and it can't get this going fast enough. And so it doesn't work until it gets down. Then the converter kicks in and goes, oh yeah, and okay, and it starts to charge the batteries, and then everything works at the dealership. So first thing is put a battery charger on. See if that makes a difference. If it doesn't make a difference, the next thing you need to do then is shut your phone off. All kinds of phone issues today. I knew I should have brought my other computer. But anyway, so the next thing you need to look at is your vents inside of your RV. So this is going to blow into your living room area and so forth. If you have covered the vents with runners, rugs, if you've shoved stuff underneath the sofa where the elephant trunks are at, it's going to restrict the airflow in those vents. And so same thing is, all of a sudden now I've got backed up downstream. I can't get that airflow going through there. It's going to really push back on the blower motor here, and my sail switch is not going to go high enough. So if those aren't the issue, then it's probably your sail switch. And you're going to have to take this out of the compartment, and you can put an ohm meter on this. It's a very inexpensive piece, so I would just replace it. But those are the things that you want to start with first, because if it's blowing air, it's telling you you don't have enough airflow to keep that switch up. Okay. Maybe that was somebody phoning in a question. Brad asks, what's the best antenna to get? There's several of them out in the market, Brad. I like the new ones that are permanently mounted to go up, and so you can get quite a variety. I like the Winegard antennas that are out there. They do have a new one now that will automatically find the towers for you, because keep in mind, when you go into a new location, you're going to have to find those new towers and do a new channel search with your TV. So to me, Winegard is the best one out there. They do have the basic one that just goes up and you have to move it yourself. That's fairly inexpensive, and it's really easy to put in. We do have video on the site where we put one in on a fifth wheel, and it was kind of interesting. Although it was 110 degrees and it was very, very uncomfortable. But before that, they got one station on a really good day. And they're parked, we're in northern Iowa, and they're back on the other side of the lake. And it's just not a real good line of sight. And we put this new antenna in, and we were able to pull in about 5 stations, which is pretty uncommon because we only got 3 available here, but we got 2 going down to Ames and a couple others. So I really like that antenna, and very easy to put in. We took the old bat wing out; it fit right in the same hole, and had the plate up underneath it. Amy says, my 2015 Airstream Grand Tour fridge and freezer are not working. Where can I purchase a new Nova Cool ones? So I'm not familiar with the Nova Cool. I'm very familiar with the Dometic and the Norcold versions of them. If the Nova Cool, I'm not sure, and again, I'm not sure if that's an absorption refrigerator or a residential style. And the difference is the residential runs on 120 only. It doesn't have an LP feature. You have to either be plugged in or have a huge battery bank to run it through an inverter. And most of your Airstreams, the Grand Tour might have a big enough battery bank to supply that through the inverter, but it's 120 that it's supplying. So I would say that if you're looking for an absorption refrigerator replacement, you need to go through the any of the RV dealers have access to that product. But I would guess before that, even I would find out what's wrong with the fridge that you have. Let's do some diagnostics on it and find out if it is an absorption refrigerator. Does it run on LP and not on 120, or vice versa? Is it the cooling unit that's bad in it, and can I get the cooling unit replaced? So I would kind of look at those options before actually replacing the refrigerator. But I'll do a little bit of research on that Nova Cool name. And one of the things that's been a challenge here in the last 2 years is that, with the shutdown, with nothing happening, it's been hard to get information. And then all of a sudden, the RV industry just explodes. And there is so many new products in the last 5-6 years that have jumped into the market, that have come from the marine industry, that have come from the residential industry, all over the place. And not having the shows and stuff, and being able to get out and see a lot of these new things. And that's one of the things kind of exciting now, is that I was able to go to the Tampa Super Show in February and see some of the products that were down there, and make some reconnect with some of the industry people that we haven't talked to for a year and a half. I am going to, in August, the North Carolina RV Dealers Association show in Raleigh is in July the 29th. And we're going to Charlotte. I think August is the 19th, and then September is in like the 29th or something. But we are having shows again, so we can get out to those. Hershey's is doing their show in September, so we will be able to get out and see some of that stuff. And Kimberly says, can you replace an air conditioner and heater in one with just an AC unit only? And yes, you can. Her question, what she's referring to, is that she probably has an air conditioner that has either a heat pump option or a heat strip in it. And it's basically the same base unit. It's an air conditioner with the compressor and the condenser, evaporator coils, and all that kind of stuff in it. If it's got a heat pump option, all it does is it reverses the operation, and it pulls BTUs out of the outside air and uses that to heat inside. It's effective down to about 50, 55 degrees. So the theory is, if I'm parked at a campground and I'm plugged into electricity and they're not metering me for electricity, I can use that heat pump option down to a certain temperature and get and heat my rig free, and I'm not using LP for my regular heater. If it's a heat strip, then it's just 2 strips that heat up inside, and again, it's just a strip with your base AC unit. So you can take, if your air conditioner is not working and you just want to replace it with an air conditioner, not spend the money for the heat pump, which in my opinion is not really worth it, because it only operates down to a certain point. And so I would, you can replace it and don't have to worry about doing the all-in-one. Darren asks, he's got a Heartland Maxim Maxim Wild 2011, how hard is it to convert to a hot water on-demand system? And it's not difficult. You just basically are going to, what I would recommend is replace the old Suburban or Atwood water heater in it and put your on-demand system in. And Atwood had one for a while. I don't know if they still have one out, but Lippert has kind of gotten into it a little bit. But the main one out there is Truma, that has been very, very well accepted. So what you need to do is make sure you get a unit that can produce the water that you want and the power. If you're looking to put in an electric unit, you're going to really have to have some good power to get that in there. And most of them are going to run off LP. So you just need to look at the specs on it and what your RV is able to produce. But it's something and I wouldn't say it's very easy to do. It's not like you're going to just pull this one out and plug this one in. There's new plumbing you're going to have to do. There's wiring that you're going to have to get there. There's the LP system that you'll have to get, which should be there already with your existing water heater that was in that space. So you have to kind of look at, and I'm not familiar enough with the layout of that, but what I would recommend is get with a Truma representative, see if you can go on their website and just talk with one of their technicians or an engineer, and they're very, very glad to walk through and take a look at a retrofit on that. And that might be something too that we look at in the future for some of our RV content is, we're getting more and more people that are looking into something, upgrading into the on-demand systems. It's just that it's been a little bit of a challenge, in the past, and getting a system that, first of all, are very expensive. And, now we're seeing a little more of the product coming into the market. So there's a little more competition. Okay. And Todd asks, I have a 2005 Forester River Forester Class C. My question is, what basic tools would you recommend carrying in your RV to be able to do most of your own work? And I would say everyone you can get your hands on. Sorry about that. But, there are the basics. You want a good wrench set and a good socket set, both the small and the deep sockets. And I would do both the SAE and the metric. I'm surprised at how many manufacturers are going to metric, but not fully. So you got so many different components in an RV. You got the stuff that the RV manufacturer has, the stuff the chassis manufacturer does, the stuff that each individual appliance manufacturer does, and some of them use metric and some of them use torque screws and all this kind of stuff. So, I would say, and usually you don't have a lot of storage capacity to put all this stuff in. Roll your great big Snap-on or Craftsman toolbox thing in there. So you got to get kind of creative out of it. But a good set of wrenches that you can roll up into a pouch. That's what I typically take. I have a good Craftsman socket set with a breaker bar that I bring. A set of 2 Phillips and 2 straight head screwdrivers that are a larger one and a smaller one. A good set of about 6 different pliers. I do the big channel lock pliers, the regular pliers, a smaller plier set, side cutters, needle nose. That's about it on my end there. And then I do take the crimper that you see here. I've got a small little fishing tackle box that I've put in some nuts and washers and screws and electrical connectors for those items. A hammer and a crowbar. I do take a little bit extra stuff to rebuild my drawers when I had drawers that would fall apart. And then some basics like a multimeter is I think almost a must-have. I also take along then a infrared thermometer like this that helps me just tell the temperature of the tires, and if I have problems with the air conditioner or the refrigerator. I can get what temperature it is. I can also see the temperature of the air conditioner if it's not operating properly. I think it's a very good idea to either take a water pressure tester, or what I typically do is, I gotta remember which side I had this on. So I typically, the thing is, you don't want your water pressure going up over 50 psi. Some of them say 60, they'll handle it, but I found that the 40 is a pretty safe area to be at. And I just automatically take a filter that's in line like this, because I don't want calcium, rust, and lime getting in there. And I know this is not a tool, but it kind of goes in with this stuff. But then I just hook an automatic reducer to this. It's just a 40 psi reducer that is on the outside of it. Your multimeter, like this one, very simple, very inexpensive at discount tool places. This is going to help me not only check the voltage in my batteries, but it's also going to help me identify if I have proper voltage in my pedestal that I'm plugging into, and that it's wired correctly. Now, what I typically do is I'm going to take this, and I don't need to have this. It's so good to have this for other stuff in your RV to diagnose it, but this is going to do surge protection at 30 amps, so I don't get a spike in the amperage, or excuse me, in the voltage that comes in here. So it's going to protect all my inside stuff, but it also is going to shut down if I go below voltage. So I think it's set at like 108 or something. I don't want to go much lower than 110. And it will tell me my amp draw inside. So it's a little expensive. It's about $300, but it is sure better than relying on that campground source to tell me what's happening in there. The other things I take, oh, there's where that is. This is a water purity tester. And all you do is take the cap off of it and dump it in, take a little bit of water out and put it on the inside of it. And it'll tell you the parts per million. The theory behind this is the more particles that are in your water that are dangerous, the less the less continuity you will have. So between these two probes, it will start to say that, it's getting a little foggy, it's getting a little bit above what that is. And then, because you're using well water at the campground. As far as other tools inside, everybody, and it kind of depends on your level of mechanical ability. This is a good little, just a tester, but if you have this, you don't need this. But this is an easy one just to test, do I have battery power? Do I have 12 volt? That's at an appliance or inside. And then this, I think, is a must. This is a non-contact voltage tester, and it will just tell me by going up to and I don't have a plug-in or a power cord, but I just go up to the power cord and it will start beeping if I have power. So I know my line is good. So those are some of the basics. We do have some videos online that do go through some of the little more specific tools. If you got any, you might want a set of Torx tips that either the star or the square or the octagon. I mean, there's so many different ones now. Just a basic overall kit of those. Black & Decker makes a really cheap one. DeWalt has them as well. So, I've got kind of that little assortment of nut drivers and certain things that I can pop in and out of my DeWalt gun, which I take with me as well. So those are just kind of a basic things that I take. But, again, depending on how much you're planning to do. Okay, Bob, picture is correct, though. The replacement is twice the size, only one strut. Okay, if the replacement is twice the size, then of that strut you showed beforehand, I would say you're gonna have a challenge sometimes getting it to come down. I would not go twice the size. unless, I mean, if it's twice the travel. If it's a 200 pound and you got a 100 pound now, that's fine as long as the travel length is the same. But when you start getting into a much larger strut, you want to find out something that you've got pretty close to the same one you're replacing. There's a lot of companies out there that sell that stuff, and you should be able to find something that matches. I would even say if you take the old one into some of your auto stores, carry that stuff as well, and they should be able to replace it pretty close to what you have. Susan says, we have an appointment in Oregon, but we're in Texas and no one is available to put in the new cooktop. Okay, so this is with the stovetop that was leaking. And, I would say that if you can find, even maybe what you want to do is just do a Google search for propane distributors in your area, because most of the filler stations, like we have United LP here, we've got K&H, and those people know technicians that are familiar enough with working with gas appliances that you could get in and have somebody do that. But if you're not familiar with gas and you haven't gone through the training and expertise on taking some of this stuff out and working with LP, I wouldn't recommend doing it yourself. But there's a lot of people out there, and all you're doing is want to cap that thing off. You don't have to take the stove and oven out. Typically, I'm not sure the exact layout of yours, but I wouldn't think you'd have to do that. So I would say just find somebody that can cap that off, and those guys would know technicians that work. They don't have to be RV technicians. They just have to be certified in working with LP gas. Okay, and Greg Beckett said, what would be the best system for cell boosting and internet when boondocking? And we just went through one of these. Pace International has a couple products that Weingart has brought out. We actually have a Wi-Fi booster down here that we use because the router's upstairs, and built a little studio down here, and we've got cement ceilings, floors, and so we boosted with the. In fact, I got it right here, I believe. This one was the King Wi-Fi Max router, and there's a lot of them out there. There's I think Weingart has a few of them, but the Netgear has several. So there's a lot of them out there. Very easy to set up, and it practically doubled our signal down here, our upload signal. We weren't too bad in the download side. On the cell phone booster, and I don't have one here because we just took it up to Minneapolis last week and shot some video up there of what was called WeBoost. And there's a couple different products. They've got one that can mount to a pole and get way up with a telescoping pole to the top with a cone, or they have a small little antenna that can go on top of your travel trailer or your motorhome, and it really does a nice job of boosting those. So I would recommend the WeBoost and the King. Wow. And Susan said it's the entry door, a big black large pole. Basically, it's a Safari. Okay, so they probably used Trimark. I think is probably the latch company that they had for theirs. And there's a lot of them that have come out. Bauer, I think Bauer is a new one. And then there's just another company that just came out with a keyless one as well that is fairly inexpensive. You might just want to look at replacing the one you have, with a newer model and go keyless. I think a couple $100, and then we put one on a travel trailer, and it fit in perfect and very simple to use, and it basically fit the exact same template hole in the door as the old Trimark that they had. So again, try a little bit of the silicone stuff. Make sure it's stuff that will not absorb or attract grease and grit, and then if not, you have to tear it apart. Okay, and David Kuhn said, what's best service shop for Aquahot? And that really depends on the area you're in. I used to know the Aquahot company pretty well quite a few years ago. They were located out in close to Longmont, Colorado, where my my in-laws lived, and we'd drive by the plant every time, and I stopped in a few times and said hello. And then the owner of it was actually killed, and unfortunately, it's a different company owns it now, but they have service locations all over the country. And I guess the one thing that I would recommend is go on their website, look at the area you're in. I know, we're lucky here because we have Winnebago Industries and Litzon's RV, and both of them have customer service, and Litzon's has a service department that is just outstanding, and they train all their people really well. And I thought it was ironic because Winnebago didn't use AquaHot much in the past. They do now, but they would even send their technicians to the AquaHot training program to be out in customer service because a lot of these people wanted to put that in. So, I would say go on the website and find out because it all depends on your region. John has a 2015 Forest River Georgetown 270S plugged into our 50 amp shoreline, a 50 amp shore here at home. Storm rolls in, power outage, power comes back on, not able to switch from shore to generator. The transfer switch is a PD52. So PD52 is progressive dynamics. And I would say you probably fried the ATS in that. It's just a series of relays that will recognize the where the power is coming from, and it will switch. So what he's got is that when you have shoreline power and you're plugged into shoreline, it automatically says, let's go through the shoreline power and go to the distribution center. And then when you fire up your generator, then it says, oh, I'm getting power from the generator. Let's switch. And so you're basically switching tracks from the shoreline cord to the generator, and that's powering it over. So now he's not getting power through that transfer switch. And, so that's pretty much in there. So I would get a hold of Progressive Dynamics and just ask them about can you swap out that switch, or do they have somebody in your location that can provide that? And, most of your OEMs, we call them, like Progressive Dynamics and others out there, they'll gladly talk to customers, walk through what you need, but they almost always work through dealers. So very, very seldom can you get stuff directly from them. But I think you fried the transfer switch on that unit. Bob, battery chargers. You may have mentioned on previous programs that some chargers can desulfate the batteries. How to ask local auto supply for the correct item, approximate price. So, so the thing is when you have lead acid batteries, every time you drain the battery down, draw energy from it, sulfur attacks the plates. And you need to break that sulfur up, whether it's a high voltage charge that boils them and breaks it up and then goes into an equalizing and a float charge, or high impact waves like you would have from PACE or battery minder. Those do it with a high impact waves, a little less gassing and so forth. Now, if you're going to look at buying a standalone charger, you need to have one and you should be able to see right on the dials that it has bulk charge, it has equalizing, and it has float. So the bulk charge is going to go like 16 volts, and it's going to boil that battery, and it's going to break up all that sulfur, and it'll go for a certain amount of time, and then it goes into a float charge, which is going to drop it down, and then it's going to go into an equalizing charge, which is going to make sure each one of the cells in that battery are all in line. And it should say right on the dial in those phases, whether it's LED or a meter in it. So you should be able to tell, and that auto store should definitely be able to identify which is doing that. Typically, you are not going to find that on one of your shelf-mounted battery chargers. My opinion, I like the battery minder, and I just came across PACE now has one as well. And according to the PACE people, the only reason I came across it is we're working with Zamp Solar, and my representatives from Zamp now are working on the PACE because PACE bought Zamp. And I asked them, I said, well, that's great. So they introduced me to new people at Zamp. long story short is they said that Pace introduced that high impact wave, and they claim Battery Minder is copying it. So whatever, all I know is it works. I have pitched that Battery Minder for quite a few years now, and it is a phenomenal product to get in to condition your batteries. So how are we doing? We got about 5 minutes left. That should be just enough for me to figure out how to use my phone. No. I have lithium batteries for the house and lead acid batteries for the starter. Do I need 2 regulators, or will a monitor take care of that? Okay, so this is Lloyd, and Lloyd says he's got 2 lithiums for the house and lead acid for the starter battery. So you get 2 completely different systems. And your house batteries need to be deep cycle batteries because they're designed to be drawn down and recharged, drawn down, recharged. It's cycles. And you should be able to get 200 to 300 cycles depending on the battery and the size and all the stuff. Your engine battery, so obviously you have a motorized unit, and your engine batteries are going to be start batteries, and they are designed to be charged all the time. So you're running down the road, your alternator for your engine is going to charge your house batteries. It has nothing to do with your batteries I said house battery. Your engine alternator is going to be charging your start batteries. Now, a lot of times they're in the same compartment, so I get a little bit confusing. But you'll see those start batteries will be rated by cold cranking amps. And most of them now are maintenance free, so there's no place to fill anything up in those. Now, your house batteries, since they're lithium, they're also going to be maintenance free, but they're going to be rated by amp hours. So you're going to have either a group 24, group 27, group 31. That'll tell you the amp hours that those have, and the lithiums usually are a lot higher. So the lithiums are going to be charged by your converter in your distribution center, or in conjunction with your distribution center, or by a solar panel. And one of the things I would be cautious about and recommend that you take a look at, if somebody, yourself or somebody prior to you, went out and put lithiums in, because those are very, very expensive batteries. And if they went out and put lithiums in the house system, they spend about $800 to $900 per battery to put those in there. And if your unit doesn't have a charger that is designed for those lithium batteries, you're going to ruin those batteries. You have to have a charger that is designed for that. And if you have just the regular system like this one here behind me, it's a distribution center with a charger on it. All it's going to do is throw a 14-volt charge into those things, and eventually you'll ruin what was a superior battery. So check your charging system just to make sure that whatever you got, and hopefully if you got a if you got a solar panel with a controller on that charge controller, those are typically will recognize lithium or have a setting for lithium in those. So you really want to make sure that charger is designed for it. And, if it came new with them, then the manufacturer would have done that. But just a word of caution, that I see people going, oh, I got to buy lithium and put them in there, and they just are now out almost $2,000 because it's not set up for it. Okay, we got Quint Williams says, I have a 2004 Fleetwood Southwind. If I am plugged in, will this charge my coach battery? It will. The thing that we've got to get back to is we talked about the multi-stage charger. So if and I don't know if the 2004, if you have a large inverter in your system, like the 2000 Freedom 2000 or Xantrex, any of those, they do have a multi-stage charger that conditions those batteries in there. And the way the system works is that when you're plugged into 120 volt, like this campground source, we would see over here, either in 50 amp or 30 amp, it goes through this distribution center here, and you've got a system of circuit breakers. And then in the larger coaches, they, and I don't know what model year and when they started it, but the cheaper versions right now, you're looking at this here, this is our charger right here, built right into the distribution center. Now, a lot of your bigger coaches started moving those, separating those, because that runs very noisy and very hot. And so it's either going to be in the kitchen or in the bathroom. Well, now all of a sudden your charger kicks in the middle of the night, and so they started taking and getting a separate charger from Progressive Dynamics makes one with a Charge Wizard, and there's other ones out there. So you have to find out, is that charger, and what it does is when your batteries get down to 50% drain, that charger then kicks on. And whether it's separate or a part of this one or the Freedom 2000, it waits until those batteries get to a certain point, and then it will kick in and it will charge them. So the long answer is yes. Of that is that it will charge those batteries when you're plugged in, but will it charge them efficiently is the big question. So if you don't have a multi-stage charger in that thing, it's just going to kick 14.4 volts into it till your batteries get up to 12.6. It's going to shut off. Your batteries will sulfate, they will store less, and you will be less efficient. So you really need to get something that conditions those batteries for you while you're doing it. So that was the last question. That was perfect timing. I don't think we had any that. Nope, Quint was the last one in there. And so we appreciate everybody coming out. We're right at the 3 o'clock range here. And everybody have a great weekend. Hopefully you can get out and go camping. If anybody's out in the West Coast or East Coast here, close to Raleigh or Charlotte in the next couple months, stop in and see us. We're doing seminars all 3 days at both locations. So with that, I appreciate everybody coming out. Have a great weekend. Enjoy your camping, and we'll see you next month.